Hi, I'm George, and in this series, I'd like to talk about mental health, the subconscious, and what you can do to improve your mental health balance throughout your life and in every day. So, imagine, if you will, that you're 4 years old. Now, when I was 4 years old, life was simple. Life wasn't complicated at all. I knew exactly what I wanted, and life was good. I was looking forward to the future. I was looking forward to having an impact in the world. I was happy. I was sure of my place in the world. I remember having this wonder at just how big and how awesome the world was, and I really had a good sense of my ability to impact the world, my ability to affect change in the world, and I was going to do great things once I was grown up. Sadly, that 4-year-old no longer exists. That sense of wonder, that sense of happiness, that sense of hope, it left. And growing up seems to have been the process by which that has all been removed. That 4-year-old doesn't exist. That 4-year-old might have been a different person. That 4-year-old might have lived in a different universe than the one I'm in now. But I realized that I lost something. I lost more than just that sense of wonder, more than my sense of ability to affect change in the world. I lost the ability to be myself, to know who I was, to know my identity. And I think identity is a critical aspect of self-actualization, if that's a term that I can use. Knowing our place in the world. But I think that as we delve into these things, we can become free to be ourselves, to know ourselves, because that's the key to life, is knowing yourself. And so, I want to talk about that. I want to go into who we are as people and why we put up these walls. I have this picture of a helmet, like a World War II helmet, except this helmet is made of chains, thick, like maybe 1 or 2 centimeter thick in diameter, metal making up these links of the chains, and it's sitting on my head. But one thing I can notice about this is that, chains aren't light. The helmet in itself might have been relatively heavy at one point, but not as heavy as if it were made of chains. That helmet is the barriers and protection and the walls we put up to protect our egos, to protect our identities. And I think that we do that growing up unknowingly. It's not something that we choose to do. It's something that just happens over time as we learn that there are things that can hurt us. There are things that are scary out there in the world. And so we put this helmet on. But on reflection, it's a helmet of chains because it constrains us. It blocks us from being who we really are, blocks us from even knowing who we really are. It constrains our personality. It constrains us being ourselves. It constrains us in interactions with others where we're maybe too scared to be honest. We're maybe too scared to let a little bit of the real, a little bit of the vulnerability show to those around us. We've learned that we need to be strong. We've learned that we need to show ourselves in the best possible light. And there's many reasons for that. But I think the most important, or the most significant reason for that protection is that we have this need to be a part of something. We have this need to be liked by others. We have this need to be approved of by others. And so whether this comes from our past, where if you got left behind by the group, you were much more likely to die. I'm not going to go into evolution versus creation, but at the same time, I think that there are elements of the past that hang around. And so we have learned to protect ourselves. We have learned that if we offend or maybe aren't as nice to people, that maybe they'll leave us, maybe they'll abandon us. For myself, there was one particular incident. My brother and I are very close in age. I've got two brothers, but my middle brother, I'm the oldest, him and I are very close in age. And I remember these feelings of competition for my parents' attention with him. And it seems like in families where there are siblings that are close in age, where the younger one comes along, and suddenly you who were the center of attention of your parents no longer is the center of attention, but now you've got this younger sibling who takes up more attention and more time, and because they've just been born, because they're more helpless, you get less attention and they get more. So there's a shift in that attention of your parents, so you get quite insecure about it. I don't remember specifics, but I remember this feeling of, I'm fighting for my parents' attention. And it's been quite interesting to put words to that, because I knew that me and my brother, we fought quite a bit as kids, but understanding why has been quite an eye-opener. And there was one particular incident that I said I didn't remember anything specific, but there was one particular incident where he did something and it meant that I ended up feeling like I was being abandoned. And it wasn't anything major. My parents are awesome. But humans aren't perfect, I guess, and they might not have spotted this. And for anyone else, it might not have been an issue. And had my brother and I been slightly further apart in years, it probably wouldn't have been an issue. But because of this competition anxiety, because of this fight for attention, it really affected me. And so I came to realize just recently that I had this major fear of abandonment, which has been around my whole life. And although it maybe when I was younger, maybe like that 4-year-old kid that I was talking about didn't know about it, it later came back much more strongly to affect my interactions with others. I was bullied quite significantly at school. Being a non-conformer, being someone who went his own way, being someone who had his own ideas and didn't conform to that peer pressure, it meant that the other kids didn't understand that. The other kids would bully me, and I don't hold it against them. It seems to be the nature of how things go. But it meant that I learned to manage people's perceptions of me. I learned to put those walls up, to always show myself in a good light. And that feels like a cage. That feels like you're constrained, like you can't be yourself. And you actually, like I said a bit earlier, you actually forget who you really are. You're so used to having to manage people's perceptions. You're so used to putting on this front of, this is who I am. I'm this perfect person. I'm stable. I know what I want in the world. I know where I'm going. But it's all a front, and it's largely affected by those around you and what you think they might think is the right way to do things. So, where am I going with this? Well, freedom is the key thought of this. Freedom. Yeah. So, I'm a Christian, and I believe in God, but I don't want to preach at you or anything like that. I'm only raising that point because we have in Christianity this idea that Jesus brings freedom. And a little while back it occurred to me that that freedom that we spoke about and that we talk about in church, I didn't actually know what that was. I didn't actually have that. And I so desperately longed to just break out, to just break the chains that I felt were holding me, to be myself. And it expressed itself in things like this desperate need to quit my job. And I think that's because my job was one of these areas where I had to really manage people's perceptions. I had to really constrain myself. I had to really block any signs of anger or disappointment or frustration. I couldn't be that. I couldn't show that to people because that's not professional. And so that was just one aspect of where I felt this intense desire to break free. The whole idea of freedom is that you get to make your own choices. You get to do what you want to do. It's incredibly frustrating because you can't actually be yourself. This touches on the subconscious because through all my research for the series, I found that the subconscious is of vital importance to who you are. It is the essence of who you are. And so in this series, I will go into the subconscious. I will look at the subconscious. And there's some really cool things that we're going to look at. But for now, for this introduction, I just wanted to say that you're not broken. And life is not supposed to be difficult. It's not supposed to be as complicated as we make it out to be. But as a self-protection, we block ourselves out from the real world. We block who we are, the real individual, the real person inside. We block it from ever seeing the light of day. And this causes issues for us. It causes stress and anxiety and depression because that's not how life is supposed to be. The 4-year-old self, that 4-year-old kid, was right all along. Was right to have wondered. Was right to be amazed at the possibilities of the world. But through fear, we block ourselves off from all of that. Join me as we discover how to be the real you and how we can affect our own change in the world. How we can come to terms with who we are, come to terms with expressing our true self. Thanks for watching. If you got something out of this, I'd love it if you could just share it with those around you. Share it with someone who you think needs this. And I'll be back soon with the next installment. Goodbye.